Good morning, Year 7 mathematicians. We're just going to finish off Chapter 19 actually, which was to do with averages. We've done mean, median, mode. We did a measure of spread as well called range. But we have to finish off with working out the mean from something called a frequency table. So the main objective today is to be able to work out the mean from a frequency table. But before we begin, I'm just going to define what the word frequency means in this maths topic. So frequency just counts, is another word for counting how many. So it counts how many of something, okay? So for example, if I needed to count how many people were in Bird that are in our class, another way of asking that question would be, what is the frequency of boys in Bird in my class? Okay, so it's just another word for counting how many. Okay, right, straight into an example. So imagine I gave you this list of numbers. Now this list of numbers is actually from a question I set some A-level mathematicians. Now the question was a maths question. It was out of 5 marks, and you could either get 0 marks, 1 mark, 2 marks, 3 marks, 4 marks, or 5 marks. And then this is a list of all of the different students and what they got on that question. Okay, so somebody had 0 marks, somebody else had 1 mark, a load of people only got 2 marks, a load of people only got 3 marks, few people got 4 marks on the question, and a couple of people got full marks, 5 out of 5 on that question. Now, writing these numbers like this, it's very hard to say like how many people got 2 marks. Like if I said how many people got 2 marks, you'd have to physically count them. But it's a way to organize this this list of numbers into something called a frequency table. So that's what we're going to attempt to do first. So a frequency table will look like the following. So remember, this question is how many marks someone got on a particular question. So there's a column which is the number of marks. So in this, you either could get 0 marks, 1 mark, 2 marks, 3 marks, 4 marks, or 5 out of 5 marks. Okay, and that's my first column. The second column is the word frequency. Okay, and then I just make this look like a table, like the following. Okay. And then I fill in this column. So this is actually asking me, frequency means how many. So this first row is how many people had 0 marks. So in that list above, how many people had 0 marks? 1 person. The second row is how many people, the frequency of people who had 1 mark. Only 1 person had 1 mark. And then the third row is how many people had 2 marks, which would be all of these people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people had 2 marks. Next row, how many people had 3 marks? All of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people. Okay. Next one, how many people had 4 marks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And finally, how many people had 5 marks? 4. Now, if I ask you the question again, how many people in this class, so how many of these A-level students got 2 out of 5 marks on this question, you can easily read it from this table. Number of marks 2, and that would be 8 people had 2 marks. Okay, so 8 people in my class had 2 marks on this particular question when they attempted it. Now, from that, there's a way now to work out the mean. Remember, the mean is an average. You might remember the formula for the mean. The mean is the sum of the values over the number of values. That's the formula we learned a few lessons ago. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated when you are working at the mean from a frequency table. It's the same formula, but you just got to make sure you put the right things into the sum of the values and the right things into the number of values. Okay, and the key thing you have to do is read the following. So, one person had 0 marks. Okay. So if one person had 0 marks, I'm adding up the number 0 once. Adding up the number 0 once would give me 1, because I'm trying to do the sum of the values. Okay. One person had 1 mark. So again, I'm adding on one person getting 1 mark. 0 times 1 is not 1, is 0. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1 though. Sorry about that mistake. Now we've got 8 people getting 2 marks. 8 people getting 2 marks. So how many marks is that in total? It'd be 2 times 8. Now these are actually the number of marks each person's getting. Remember, this is the sum of the values. That's the sum of all of the marks. 11 times 3. 11 people got 3 marks. Five people got 4 marks. 4 people got 5 marks. Okay, so that was all of the marks that have been earned by those students in this particular question. Nothing for 0 marks. 1, 16, 33, 20, and 20 there. So the sum of the values is equal to 0 plus 1 plus 16 plus 33 plus 20 plus 20. That is the sum of the values. That is all of the marks added up. Okay? Now what would be the number of values? The number of values, like the number of students in this case who took that test or who answered this question. How would you work that out? We had 1 person who had 0, 1 person who had 1, 8 people had 2, 11 people had 3, 5 people had 4, 4 people had 5. So if I added up all these people, remember frequency is counting how many, but they are the individual people. 1 plus 1 plus 8 plus 11 plus 5 plus 4. So 1 plus 1 plus 8 plus 11 plus 5 plus 4. That would be the correct fraction. Now we've got some addition to do. Again, you can do this column addition or you can do it in your head. 1 plus 16, 17, plus 33 is 50, plus 20 is 70, plus another 20 is 90. Over. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 8 is 10, plus 11 is 21, plus 5, 26, plus 4 is 30. What is 90 divided by 30? 3 marks. The average number of marks my students got on this test was 3 marks. which makes sense, doesn't it? Because the numbers need to be between 0 and 5. If the average was 7, how can a student score 7 marks on average in a question that's only out of 5? Okay, so this makes sense. Now, I want you guys to have a little bit more, a little bit easier of a method to do this, because when I ask you to work at the frequency, the mean from a frequency table, you've always got to add in this extra column, these extra workings I've done in green, okay? Now, this column is the first column times the frequency. It's always the first column times the frequency. That first column, people sometimes call X. Okay, X just represents first column. That second column, sometimes people call it F for frequency. And this third column is whatever the first column times F is. Okay, so this extra column you need to add into your workings. I call it the X times F column, or the F times X column. It's just frequency times the first column. You have to add that in, okay? And then that allows me to write a slightly different version of this formula, okay? So the mean from a frequency table is equal to the sum of the X times F column over the number of values, which, remember how we worked out that number of values? It was all of this column added up. So the second column, which is called the frequency column, so the sum of the frequency column, and that would be the fraction, and this will work out the mean from any frequency table, provided that you add in that extra column, first column times second column, this X times F column. Now the questions I would like you to complete, there's not many of them in the textbook, there's only 3 of them. They're on page 348, and they go on to page 349, and it's called exercise 19B, and I want you to do all 3 questions. Okay, all 3 questions using this method. And that's it.